Our friendship. We began to care for each other a great deal more at that point because things were getting really tough for us. 72 of those shows were done. CBS had strict rules about how the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour could be changed. Every second was looked over. Every word was looked over. But on September 17, 1967, something got through. It was missed by the devices. No one in charge saw it. It was only later that even the brothers found out. During the Who show, the camera caught something in the background by mistake. Something that proved what everyone thought but couldn't prove. The story of Smothers Brothers started with tragedy. Their dad, Major Thomas B. He was an officer in the Army. He was in the Philippines in 1941 during World War II. When Japan came in, he was sent away with his wife Ruth and their 2 boys. The Major Smothers was caught. He made it through the terrible Bataan Death March. After that, he was sent to Fukuoka No. 22, a Japanese prison camp with terrible conditions. He was too sick to work in April 1945 when the war was almost over. He was moved from Fukuoka to Korea on April 25. He never got there. Several news sources say he was buried at sea. Some say he was burned at the stake in Korea. Only 36 of the 1,110 guys who were moved with him made it back alive. The last person to die was Major Smothers. Ruth was left to raise Tom 1937 and Dick 1938. Their mother worked long hours while they were growing up in California. They made fun of people who had hard lives for years to come. In 1959, that humor really took off at the Purple Onion, a small club in San Francisco. The brothers were only supposed to stay for 2 weeks, but people loved them so much that they stayed for 36 weeks. People really liked how they mixed folk music with funny stories. A flamenco dancer got hurt one night. Tom and Dick had to stand in for her. Everyone saw how special they were when they showed up out of the blue. They were making $2,000 a week by the end of their run. They were making $2,000 a night just a few months ago. The Smothers Brothers at the Purple Onion. Their first song came out in 1961. It got them their first job. Before they were in the Purple Onion, they were in a band that Tom started while he was in college. The group was known as the Casual Quintet. Tom was a guitarist. Dick learned to play the bass to play with him. One by one the other people left, but Tom and Dick kept going. To pass the time, they began to joke around between songs. That was the real start of their style. They found that people laughed as much at their sibling teasing as they did at their music. That teasing between siblings became what they did best. Tom played the innocent one on stage. Dick was the cool brother. They got into a fight in front of everyone. The crowd would roar when Tom said, "Mom always liked you best." It wasn't a fake. They were just that way. People could relate to their entertainment because it was based on real events. They had a chance to get even bigger by the middle of the 1960s. Bonanza on NBC was way better than CBS on Sunday nights. Bonanza was watching by a quarter of all TV watchers in the U.S. It had already beaten Harry Mason and The Gary Moore Show, 2 other CBS hits. CBS made up their minds to try something new. Their goal was to get younger people to come. They thought the Smother Brothers would be able to do it. Tom and Dick were smart, funny, and unique. They thought they could make CBS look cool again. The first episode of the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour aired on February 5, 1967. At first glance, it looked like any other entertainment show. They were presented by Ed Sullivan as normal American kids, but after a few shows, it was clear they were anything but normal. It was a joke about the Vietnam War. They made fun of leaders. They talked about important things. Their jokes were smart and brave. They broke the rules every week, and people loved it. They beat Bonanza in the ratings in just 2 weeks. Younger people watched. Advertisers were very happy. Before they started, Tom had asked to have full creative power. Due to their need for a hit, CBS agreed. They were free to say what they wanted after that deal. Folk singers like Pete Seeger, who sang songs against the war, were allowed. On TV shows across the country, they made fun of President Johnson. It felt like every show was a treat. It felt like every show was a risk. At every turn, CBS censors fought them. They fought back, and the banning was often part of the show. Like the hosts, the writing team was brave. Comedians Steve Martin, Rob Reiner, Lorne Michaels, and David Steinberg all got their start there when they were young. They made jokes that were important. They didn't follow the rules for TV. A lot of them changed American humor for good. Saturday Night Live, All in the Family, and The Mary Tyler Moore Show were all changed by their work. Something that no one saw coming happened on American TV in 1968. The Beatles' Hey Jude promotional short was shown on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour on October 6. People in the UK had seen it a few weeks before, on September 8. But this was the first time that people in the US could see this kind of movie. It wasn't called a music video back then. An advertising film was what they were called. On September 4, the Beatles filmed Hey Jude at Twickenham Studios. The set was even made by Paul McCartney. A big group of people in white tuxedos played along. Another 300 people sang the ending with the main cast. Ringo Starr had quit the band for a short time and then came back to it. It was more than just a song. It was a big deal for them. That wasn't all. The next week, Revolution was shown on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour. Americans got to see the Beatles in a new way when they watched two movies back to back. Even the Ed Sullivan Show wasn't able to do this. No one else could get to what the Smothers Brothers could. It seemed like a big change. The music was shifting. Things were also changing on TV. Another big event took place on the same show in 1967. Someone asked Pete Seeger to sing. Seeger hadn't been allowed on TV for years. He hadn't been on the air for almost 17 years because of the ban. When he finally sang Waist Deep in the Big Muddy, it was a clear attack on the Vietnam policy of President Johnson. Before it aired in September 1967, CBS cut the song. There was no way Tom Smothers was going to be quiet. He made sure that the news got out. Because people were mad, CBS had to let Seeger come back. A lot of people finally got to see him sing the song uncensored on February 25, 1968. That was the first time an artist on a ban had been so direct about calling out the president. Protest music had the power to break down barriers at that time. The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour also let bands perform that no one else would. There were shows by The Who, The Doors, Jefferson Airplane, Buffalo Springfield, and Stephen Wolf from 1967 to 1969. These weren't good picks for big-time TV. At the end of one show, The Who smashed their instruments and set off fireworks in Keith Moon's drum kit. Pete Townshend's hearing was hurt by the noise, and pieces flew everywhere. Touch Me was played by The Doors with a full choir. Another song by Jefferson Airplane was called Crown of Creation. It was about being afraid of nuclear war. They played for what they were worth, and Stephen Wolf's Born to Be Wild brought raw energy into American homes. No matter how scared it made the network, the Smothers Brothers didn't care. Their goal was to give these rebellious views a place to be heard. Some of the biggest names in rock music liked that spirit. Jimi Hendrix stopped in the middle of a song on April 26, 1969, at the Los Angeles Forum to honor the Smothers Brothers. He said they were heroes for letting protest and art live together on TV. He was at the top of his game. It had been too controversial for CBS to keep the show going, but Hrix didn't forget. He told everyone there that the Smothers Brothers were important. Never before had music and comedy worked so well together, and they did it with a smile. A regular sketch called Share a Little Tea with Goldie was a great example. Lee French played Goldie O'Keefe, a hippie who was lost in thought and gave funny advice that had more than one meaning. Tea was a code word for pot. She used to go by the slang name Goldie Keefe, which means cannabis. They had to change it because of the monitors, but most people watching at home knew what was going on. No one thought Goldie meant bugs when she talked about roaches. Younger viewers liked the joke because it made them think the show was making fun of them. The network kept an eye on things, but Goldie became a fan favorite. Keith Moon never hid anything. It was September 17, 1967, and The Who was on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour. He chose to go even further than usual. The band was there to play My Generation, and Moon had a surprise planned. He had hidden bombs inside his kick drum. No one had agreed to that much. Not even the other people in his band knew what was going to happen. Moon wanted the ending to be perfect, wild, loud, and easy to remember. The bombs went off with a huge bang when the last part of the song played. Things flew across the stage like smoke and smoke. Moon was pushed backward when a piece of a sign hit him. His hair was all messed up because it was blown up. Townshend's hearing would never be the same after being hit by that force. The noise was so loud that it shocked everyone into quiet. Then they screamed and cheered. Moon had caused confusion in a show just as she had planned. The price was high though. He would lose almost 90% of his hearing in one ear. After that there was painful noise that didn't go away. Even after many years, Townshend still talked about the ongoing pain and how the damage made it harder for him to play the guitar. It was a memorable moment for everyone, and it changed how they did their work from then on. The guitar came next. Townshend grabbed Tom Smothers' acoustic guitar and smashed it on stage while there was a lot of smoke and chaos. She didn't say anything because she was too shocked to. It felt like the right way to end the chaos. It was a loud, angry moment that made it clear who the Who were. No one had ever been brave enough to touch those lines before. The blast and the broken guitar did more than just make the news. It became a famous rock event. Fans younger than me loved it. Older people were very angry. America got something real, raw, and defiant from the show. It made parents angry. Kids thought it was freedom. It really was a split between generations. They wanted it, as did the Who, the Smothers Brothers, and their wild fans. It would be impossible to forget the show. Joan Baez was making trouble too. Everyone knew that she was a folk singer who fought for peace and fair treatment of people. She was born in Staten Island, New York on January 9, 1941, and had spent her whole life fighting for what she thought was right. Through her protest songs, Baez had already been arrested in 1967, and people who wanted change heard them. She wanted to sing a song for her husband David Harris,
who was going to jail for 3 years, when she went on the Smothers Brothers entertainment show. Rather than going through the draft, he spoke out against the Vietnam War. Baez told the audience that she was proud of him on the show. But CBS cut out most of what she said, leaving only a brief message before she started to sing. Baez's edited dedication was just one sign that CBS was under a lot of stress. The network didn't want to make the government or donors mad. The show was so bad that even President Lyndon B. Johnson didn't like it. Johnson had been up until 3 a.m. to call CBS and tell them to take charge of the Smothers Brothers. Nixon then came after them and worked even harder to get them off the air. Back in 1968, Harry Belafonte was booked for the show. A strong show was put together by them. At the same time that Belafonte sang Lord Don't Stop the Carnival, video showed cops beating anti-war protesters at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. It was brave, it was true, but CBS took down the whole show before it ran. It didn't end there though. Once they were done, CBS sold the 5 minutes they had cut to the Republican Party or to political ads. What was meant to be a sincere protest against political violence turned into an ad for the leaders that were being criticized. The network was clearly on one side. The Smothers Brothers were under a lot of stress by the end of 1968. CBS said that all scripts, jokes, song lyrics and even whole videotapes had to be sent in for review a long time before they were shown. It wasn't a quick check. Each and every word would be picked apart by censors. It didn't matter if it was about politics, faith, the Vietnam War or even funny things. Their high standards meant that every little thing had to meet them. Guests with a more adult sense of humor were also often censored, and some were even cut out totally. 10 days before each show the due date was set. At the time that was a tough order meant to stop the brother from pushing the rules too far. The writers felt stuck in a never-ending loop of waiting, rewriting and sending in again. Even hours before the show aired, CBS often asked for changes right at the last minute. People who wrote the scripts would joke that it felt like being stabbed 1,000 times. They were right too. Tom and Dick chose to fight back one day. In the sketch they made, Tom played a censor who tore up scripts with big scissors and stopped actors in the middle of a sentence. It was clear what the joke was. Their show was being turned off. It was brave of the ending. There was nothing left on the screen but quiet. CBS didn't get the joke though. The network wouldn't show the sketch. CBS thought the skit was too bad for their image, according to internal notes. Elaine May was in a sketch like this one that was also pulled. Tom was very angry when she said, "If we can't say anything important, we're just fooling you with empty jokes." Cut deep. It was now so strict that even making fun of strict rules was against the law. At the same time, the brothers didn't give up. They chose to play a game with CBS instead of meeting their goals. They would get tapes to you as late as possible. They would sometimes send a safe version to be reviewed and then make changes right before the show aired. CBS went crazy over it. The network said they were breaking the terms of their deal. It was April 1969 when CBS finally had enough. They said the Smothers Brothers didn't turn in a tape on time. CBS was partly to blame for the delays, but that was just a reason to cancel the show, which was still one of the 10 most watched shows in the US. No, the fight wasn't really about the due dates. It had to do with power. After the fact, Tom Smothers said it was all part of a plan to drown them. The press got wind of the fight. A harsh opinion in the New York Times said that CBS was holding the Smothers Brothers hostage to their own creativity. More people supported it. CBS got a lot of letters and protests. People in politics and among musicians spoke out. All of a sudden, it wasn't just one show. It had to do with free speech on national TV. The opinion made people at CBS nervous. They hurried into talks to fix the problems. The Smothers Brothers didn't back down. They were set on telling the truth. Tom made it clear, they are not just ending our show, they want to keep the truth from getting out. That stand changed the course of television history. But CBS also had other issues. Advertisements from big brands like Ford and Procter & Gamble began to be taken down. Companies were afraid that the show's anti-war and political jokes would turn off their customers. A lot of money was lost quickly. Within a few months, CBS had lost a lot of money. Internal memos showed that one of the main reasons for the cancellation was pressure from the sponsors. If sponsors were scared away, even the most popular show could be lost. After the fact, Tom said with anger, "We won the lawsuit, but we lost the culture war." Advertisers had sent the message, "Speak too freely and you'll pay the price." One joke went too far. In March 1969, Dick did a Nixon version and joked, "I'll end the Vietnam War as soon as I figure out where the off button is." It was short, sharp, and true, but it made CBS mad and scared advertisers. Both the war and the new president touched people deeply. The network was already tense, and this made things even worse. CBS turned off the show on April 4, 1969. The cancellation happened right away. CBS said they didn't turn in the tapes on time, but everyone knew it was really about their political views. There were plans for the show to come back for another season. They had been renewed a few weeks before. CBS even pulled a show that had already been taped, and in which comedian David Steinberg delivered another anti-war speech. In the United States, the episode was never shown. Canada was the place where it was shown. The rejection was harsh and came out of the blue. It let the other performers know that going too far offbeat would have bad results. It got rough in court for the Smothers brothers. They sued CBS for breach of contract and fought for 4 years. They won in April 1973. In today's money, the judge gave them $776,300, which is more than $5.5 million. The decision made history. It made it clear that networks couldn't use censorship as an excuse to stop shows. The win was good though. They had lost their base already. Their other work never quite lived up to the magic of their comic hour. Then they did a kinder show on NBC, but it didn't do well. CBS quickly found someone else to fill in. Hey Haw, a clean country comedy show with country songs and silly jokes, debuted on June 15, 1969. There wasn't any humor, politics, or trouble. CBS really wanted that to happen. It was on for 23 years. The fact that it did well showed that networks would always pick safe entertainment over risky ones. Tom and Dick were also changed by the fight. Tomok was the worst. Years later, he said that losing the show made him feel empty. It hurt his pride and took a long time to get better. Dick found other things to do, like driving cars and making wine, to help him deal with things. Both boys will never be the same again. They kept the scars. The Smothers brothers tried again in 1970, a year after CBS fired them in 1969. They took their act to ABC this time. The mood had changed by summer 1970. ABC was careful. The network didn't want any problems like the ones CBS had. They told the brothers to calm down and kept a close eye on them. People were no longer as interested in rebellious fun. People had moved on after the Vietnam War was over. The show ended quickly. ABC didn't give them a fall slot because their ratings went down. People's tastes can change very quickly, as this short run showed. They were on the cutting edge one year, and behind the times the next. They tried again in January 1975, this time on NBC. The first episode was really big. With a 50 share, it was the 5th most watched show in the United States. It's not possible to get that many now, but they were successful for a while. There was stress going on behind the scenes. There was a fight between the director Joe Hamilton and Tom and Dick. There was no way for Tom to do retakes without losing some of his pay. They couldn't easily meet with writers or talk to the press. Soon, the show's numbers went down, and it fell to the bottom of the list. Hamilton got angry and left. Tom was finally in charge of the last 4 shows on NBC. Some of their bravest work was then, like a joke about cocaine, which wasn't often seen on prime time at the time, and famous people like George Carlin and Ringo Starr. NBC ended the show in the middle of the season, even with these good points. This showed that networks can ruin even the best of comebacks. Something strange happened in 1988. They were fired by CBS almost 20 years ago, but they were asked back for a 1-hour reunion special. The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour was even the name of the show. The 20th get-together. 3 primetime Emmys were up for grabs with the show. Some writers like Steve Martin and Bob Einstein also came back. The show made me feel nostalgic and calm. Some people liked it, but I felt very safe around it. The political spirit of the past was gone. People liked seeing them again, as did reviewers. But it was no longer new. In the same year, CBS brought them back for a full reboot of their show. It was a strange time. There was a strike by the Writers Guild. The boys stuck to their old habits when they didn't have writers with them. The guests did most of the funny stuff. They had new texts again after the strike was over. The scores went up a little. The show was even nominated for 5 Emmys. But TV had moved on. From March 1988 to August 1989, the reboot ran for 2 seasons. It never had the same effect as the first one. In the fall of 2022, the boys' story was written down for all time. The Performing Arts Collection at UC Santa Barbara took their whole library. It had recordings, photos, music sheets, contracts, and legal paperwork. The director, David Suber, said it should be next to the Library of Congress. This collection shows how they fought for free speech and how they changed humor. People are still studying their work decades after they did it. Comedy can stand up to power and fight for real change, as this shows. That was what the Smothers Brothers really left behind. They were already breaking the rules before Saturday Night Live even began. From 1967 to 1969 they had a show. A lot of jokes were told about war, censorship, and politics. They taught writers like Lorne Michaels, who went on to make SNL. After that, actors like Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, John Oliver, and Samantha Bee did the same thing.
They showed that comedy could tell the truth to powerful people and make people think. The show also helped big names in comedy get their start. Steve Martin wrote one of the first songs. Rob Reiner and George Carlin also showed up often. Afterward, many of them said that this show helped them get known. The brothers made a place where it was safe to take chances. That gave American humor a fresh new look that didn't go away for decades. They fought back when CBS fired them in 1969. CBS ended their show because of censorship, even though it had one of the best ratings. They were taken to court by the brothers. They got it. It was an important case for TV free speech. It was the first time that a humor show had been able to beat back a network. It showed that freedom of creativity is important. All of this was done at a time when Americans were divided over Vietnam, civil rights, and society in general. The Smothers Brothers show was a way to connect things. They had bands like The Who, Jefferson Airplane, Simon and Garfunkel as guests. Even folk singer Pete Seeger, whose song Against the War got him in trouble. They also showed new films, such as Hey Jude by the Beatles. This was the first time many people saw The Fringe. Bill Maher once said it all very well. The brothers weren't afraid to make people mad when they didn't agree with them. They didn't try to make everyone happy. Funny people showed that they could stand up for something and make a difference. That lesson stuck with them even after the show ended, and it's still important today.